When I first met Katie Meyer in the fall of 2006, and she was interested in forming an Invisible Children chapter on campus. I think she had already started the process, and she wanted to go to Washington, D.C. with a group of students to take place in the Displace Me event, which the national organization was sponsoring. And the students were going to drive in their cars in a caravan, and they needed some advisors or faculty to accompany them. And I suggested that we maybe try to get some funding to get a bus. And I wasn't really looking forward to all the liabilities of all the student drivers going up to DC. Long story short, we arrived safely and it was a fantastic event. But I remember that Katie was just so shy. At least she seemed shy and timid. And, granted, she was a first semester student at Elon.
So, as Dr. Lane said, who later became my research mentor my sophomore year, Displace Me was a huge part of my freshman year. Starting Invisible Children came initially from going to a protest event in high school called the Global Night Commute, which is also another Invisible Children protest event. I did this protest event in my home state, and then I also saw the documentary Rough Cut just before going to this event. But it wasn't until I started a chapter of Invisible Children at Elon and led my own members to a protest event that I realized just how much I cared about child soldiering and children in Africa. I was fortunate to have gained much success in the protest events, fundraisers, and screenings I organized, and really thought I could make an impact with this cause and help even fix it. I was planning rock concerts, speakers, you name it. I wanted to do everything that I could to raise money or awareness for child soldiers in northern Uganda. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to do all that I could to save these children. Not to underrate how big of a deal it was finding what I was interested in and possibly passionate in my freshman year. But I also realized how naive, young, and inexperienced I was. I had not yet fully become aware of what my true passion was at this point, my freshman year, and even my sophomore year. But I did realize the immense interest and dedication I had to child soldiering, or activism against child soldiering. At this time, I was also probably not educated in my area of interest, or in how to help agencies abroad, and specifically in Africa. I fell into the trap that a lot of young activists make in thinking that I could fix or solve the issue of child soldiers in Africa. So, after sharing with you my passion or my initial interest in child soldiering and children in Africa, I would like to take this time to share what many of the experts in the field of children's human rights in Africa say about Western and outside help, and what I wish I had known before I began advocating, recruiting, and speaking about the cause, but more so before I began carrying out campaigns and events and other programs that I believed would help and even solve the issues this population faced.
I think if you acknowledge that you are other to that community, it's very important to first acknowledge that you are other to that community in terms of class or nationality or race or whatever. And then and after you acknowledge, you get to also acknowledge that they are there to teach you a lot. That you are going to learn a lot from them. It's not that you're going to come to teach them. You're also going to learn a lot from them. Yes. And the third one for me is then how you to keep yourself quite sensitive to these issues of cultural and other issues that stick to the most basic human techniques that we all have. For instance, one of them is listening. Listening is listening. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. If you give somebody an ear, that's an ear, it doesn't matter where, you will never go wrong. So if you stick to those basic human skills that you have, and then you can actually ask the other people who are there about the other skills, and then you learn from there. For me, then you'll never go wrong.
Most of the criticism that comes across is a question of, respecting the values, respecting the cultures of the, I can say, African people, in to be exact. It's quite important to understand how people live. Once you understand how people live, you understand their culture. Because a nation with no culture is a nation with no direction. There's got to be a culture. And then people within that particular settlement must understand what culture is, so that they can be able to explain that culture should there be somebody from the other places coming in. So if you coming into a country, or you're coming into a continent, you must understand the culture of that particular continent, so that whatever that you do does not clash.
Difficult, especially if you're not part of the society, or you're not part of that community. You have to let them inform you, and sometimes it's difficult, especially because the type of people that would come from wherever and come to South Africa, and because they feel that there's a need for help, and they have this hope, we want to fix everything, and they're here for 6 months and they have to fix it now.
They want to save South Africa.
It doesn't work that way, and it's difficult to bring that across. And sometimes, because it works in America or in Australia, or it's not necessarily going to work here, because our cultures are so different. And even you go from one town to another town, just in Cape Town, that is like 10 minutes away, it's different. And I mean, we've also had to learn by trial and error that we ourselves, we're not part of that community. We can't, even though we are South African, we are Cape Townian, we don't live in that situation, in that circumstances, we don't understand it. It's very different. I would say try to help instead of fix. Like for instance with the trauma center, we have our hands full. If you can just take that one thing, do that one thing while you're there, and instead of trying to do what we do, instead of trying to do everything, you helping by helping the service providers, and just by helping instead of trying to fix everything.
I think that, and with all due respect to anybody who comes out of South Africa, I think it's a philanthropic thing to say, I want to go in there and help, and that's great. But at the end of the day, the people who live in those areas or who work in those areas know what the challenges are. So I'm all for somebody coming here and saying, guys, I'm making these resources available. But it's like me coming to the States and saying, I got the solution to ghettos. Like, what do I know? I don't come from there. So with all due respect, the fact of the matter is you don't know what those challenges are until you're actually there, until you're actually working with it on the ground.
Be sensitive in the fact that, we've been doing this for years. So instead of, it's exactly the way we would do with parents, is make us come to the realization that it's not working. Don't tell us that it's not working because, in America or in Australia, we do it like this and it's definitely working. It's very different to saying that, I've noticed that this isn't going according to how you would like it. What if you do it this way, would that help? And sometimes they will also find out that then we try it that way and that doesn't help either. So yeah, I would say that just try and slot in.